Hello again, everybody. I'm Dean O'Neill.
I'm Nick Robinson.
And I'm Will Speaker.
Everybody, we've kind of gotten into a holiday lull. I did put out a note with our last batch, stating that I was away on assignment. Mm-hmm. It started with me. I was away on assignment, and then the timing just worked out to where Nick had to be in Wabash for his stuff. So we're catching up, but we're doing good.
And so Elena and I are still planning to do the 1 Corinthians run through, to go through that whole book. Her and I just kind of doing kind of an experiment. Her and I tackling a whole book together.
Sure.
But today, I'm still excited, of course, as we wrap up the book of Acts. We're not actually wrapping it up today, but in this recording session, we're going to record Acts chapter 18, 19, and 20, and you'll hear those over 3 different episodes.
Sure.
But we will have. No, I'm wrong. We're not finishing. Acts has 28 chapters.
It's 28.
In it.
Yeah, it's pretty long.
Somebody should be in charge of this stuff. I don't know why I thought it ended at 20, because after this we switch back to Ephesians and then we go back to Acts. So
20, chapter 21 might be what we're doing Sunday or something like that. So
yeah, it is. 21 is what we're doing on Sunday. We just talked about that in staff meeting today. I should know that. Okay, so in Acts chapter 18, this past Sunday, we talked about Paul having helpers. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just a really important thing for church people and for people in life to keep in mind, is asking for help, giving help. All of these things are just incredibly important. But even though we're kind of raised up to be self-sufficient people, mm-hmm. and that's a myth. Self-sufficiency is largely a myth unless you're living on the frontiers, doing, trapping your own animals, and no one's living that way anymore. Not in modern day society. And so I think that's a really interesting point. We're going to look at it a little bit differently today, because some of those partners that he had were partners in his job, in the thing that he did, to the skill that he worked, the trade that he worked to get paid and to provide a living for himself. Now, sometimes he made a living by receiving funds from the people who he was witnessing to, from the churches that he was spending time with, and sometimes he got funds from working leather. We hear about him being a tent maker. Yep. That's why when we talk about bivocational pastors, we talk about tent making. Mm-hmm. The pastors are not literally making tents of any kind. But that tent making kind of shorthand is because that's one of the things Paul did for income. So that got me thinking, what is the relationship between our faith and our work? Now, I've only worked a few non-church jobs, and they were all before I turned 23. So they were all 17 years ago, which has been a minute.
Sure.
But Dean and Will, you guys have worked more recently, and maybe a long time, in other careers that are not necessarily faith-based, that mm-hmm. are not being paid to show up and talk about Jesus.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I want to hear from you guys. How does your faith relate to this work that you've done in other places?
Well, it's to me, it's about my growth in my faith, and my walk has pushed me along an avenue that not very many people go into. And I'm, of course, having my faith out in the forefront of what I do in my day-to-day job and in my life.
Yeah, because one of the reasons you started looking for a job like the one you have now, that we learned in the interview process, is you were looking for a place to practice your faith more specifically in your day-to-day job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But before that, before I came to that conclusion and everything, I still felt, with my faith, it's all about, like you said, it's more about community. It's more about working together, working for something for the betterment of those besides you or anything. That's what I felt my faith pushing me towards when I do different things in my career, my career life. And so I felt that at first when I was going in high school and everything, I felt I wanted to be a nurse. I liked science. I liked interacting with people, and more specifically, I wanted to be like a pediatric nurse because I love working with kids, and I felt like oftentimes some kids don't always get a voice in their care.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't always get a voice in their life fully. And so to see those that maybe don't always have a voice, and my career path shifted to other kids or other people that don't always get their voice heard or expressed fully. And so my faith really has pushed me to pursue that, and then I eventually graduated into wanting to put that, specifically my faith, at the forefront of what I did daily.
So when you were working at kind of the youth services center and you couldn't put your faith at the forefront of what you were doing, what did that feel like?
I mean, I still felt in a roundabout way that I was doing what my faith wanted me to do and what I was called to do. It just felt awkward because there was at times that I really wanted to like connect with someone in a trivial moment or a really tough moment in their life, and I couldn't necessarily share in the way that I felt needed to be shared to them.
Like that next level was off limits.
Yeah, that next level, like I could still, in general ways and general terms, put my faith into action by showing the characteristics or the fruit of my faith, but not to the depth that I really wanted to do. Yeah. So that was like that was a stumbling block for me.
It was like a limitation of practicing your faith in a public environment.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, I still felt like I did good. I felt like I made connections. I still felt that I was fulfilling like what my faith calls me to do in my day-to-day life. But there's different levels at times. Yeah. Sometimes we just have to ask ourselves, well, are we being called to go the next step further with our work, with our day-to-day career, with our vocation? It's or are we still fulfilling the level in which we're at this time?
Yeah, because there's like this level where, okay, so I'm called to be a loving person, and I can love someone without talking about my faith. In certain work environments, though, you might not even be able to like show love, and I don't mean like affection, like or trying to date your coworkers or anything like that. But you can't even show kindness to your coworkers because you're not allowed to even to know what they're working on. You're not allowed. There might be so many barriers of secrecy. You're not supposed to say, I mean, like, oh, how are you feeling after such and such happened? Because it's protected by HIPAA, or like you can't even show that you care for your coworkers.
Yeah, even on the flip side of that, with me and working with kids, and also working in a legal standpoint, I could maybe interact with the kid because I worked with them on their caseload and everything like that. But I couldn't necessarily go and if someone knew this kid was struggling with something, but was outside those terms of how we could share. There's confidentiality involved that I couldn't share that support because, I was held to certain standards, which I followed. So it was tough.
And all those standards are there for a reason.
Yeah.
But they make it hard for us to not only practice our faith in like this evangelistic way, but in I'm a caring human being that's been transformed by Jesus Christ, and I want to show you that I care for you kind of way.
Yeah, exactly.
Dean, what about you? How has faith and your work intertwined?
It's really good, and it's something that I really am upset with myself that I missed.
Yeah,
from the beginning.
Yeah, so for you, one of the challenges was it took you a while to put the faith and the work together.
Exactly. So yeah, my faith, I missed out on a lot with my work and my faith because I didn't really have faith in the beginning of my career. I've been in the same career for 34 years, and I'm not going to do anything else. Yeah. So I had to come to terms with what I was doing. And here's what happened. In 91, I met Tom Rust, and he helped me. I was going through a bad time, divorce and everything like that. And he really was the first guy that brought God into my world, but I didn't take advantage of it at all. I just knew he was there, and I that was a stepping stone for me. And then this is where I'm on when I talk about my path. I have a path. I think everybody does, but I look at my path. I met Mark Tyke, all right, and then Mark has this knack of remembering you. Okay, I see it all the time in him, and it was in 2013, and then Chad Foster comes along to the church, and I start going to church. That's it. I start going to church, and I get baptized there and everything like that. And I'm just a person that goes on Thursday nights, set up right by myself. He was always talking to me, and that's the way it is, just like you do. And so they offered me a job, and it's like, guys, I said, I don't know if I could do church work. I don't know if I'm able to do church work. And so I prayed about it. In my own way, I prayed about it, and so I took the job. Now, let me tell you something. I took the job. 5 days later, I met Carol. And this is just our meeting of anniversary was just last week. We met each other. We nobody introduced us. We met each other, and the rest is history. So that became more easy for me to do my faith and work and stuff, and my job got easier. And let me say this too: I got busier too. Mm-hmm. I think that God said to me in His own way, "This is what I've been wanting you to do for a long time. I don't know why you haven't been doing it, but you're there and you're not too late and everything." So I do have to, in my job, I have to see what God is doing in his infinite wisdom to everyone, with everyone.
Did it become easier for you to have that faith continue to grow when you brought it into the world of what you do for work?
Sure it did. Sure. And it also brings me to things that we're doing right now. I mean, I faith-based my website that I have. I've used my faith to what we're doing, jumping into with the conversation. It's taking a minute, but I think God is putting us towards our strengths. He says that he's been in faith business the whole time, but let me tell you something. He's learning another thing that he's good at, and and I would not. Let me just say this: I wouldn't if I didn't think he could do it. I'd do something else. I tried to, and he can really do it. And really, you are too. I think you're looking at things that we've done. So I see the rewards. Yeah. Let me say that, and I'll end with that. I see the rewards for me using my faith and my career.
So this past time when I was at the Wabash Pastoral Leadership Program, which is one of the obstacles that we face in our recording, I'm going out of town to learn and to be around some leaders of various types. There was someone from the Central Indiana, I don't know. I think it's a CICP or the CIPC, but it's a economic group. It's a group of CEOs that get together and to make decisions for economics in Central and wider Indiana. I think they've been expanding their reach. But one of the things they talked about is how some time ago a study came out that there was like $18 an hour was the magic number for people's like happiness or quality of life, and so the director of IU Health is on here, and he wasn't at this meeting that I was at, but he's on this larger panel, and it's like, okay, the hospital is going to work towards having $18 an hour our starting wage, because economics are important. The way that we treat people with living wages is important. And they did. They decided, hey, through our economics, through our work, we're going to make this decision that is going to make people's lives better. Now, our presenter pointed out that they forgot to index it to inflation, so they're probably still starting people at $18 an hour, right, and they need to work on that. But today I was talking to somebody who's on the board for the Methodist Health Group, which is the Methodist arm that interfaces with IU after IU took over Methodist Hospital. And this person was like, I'm going to follow up with that board and see how we're doing with that $18 an hour bit of information. And so like there's, in our work, we have these opportunities to make an impact. So it's not so often, I don't know, I feel like I've come from this background where it's like, okay, what you do at work is you're going to be an evangelist for your coworkers, and you're going to go in and you're going to like save them. But here, like but some of us have agency at our jobs. Sometimes it's limited agency, but how do we make decisions that make things just and fair for the other people around us? And how can our coworkers be part of that work and that effort?
Yeah.
How can we help guide people into, because sometimes our economics can take advantage of people. They can be detrimental systems. They can be damaging to people's lives. Mm-hmm. Like, how can we as a church, one, acknowledge that we have coworkers and like the things that we're working towards can be positives in their own. Making a better diesel engine can be a good thing on its own. How do we do that? And how do we also understand that God is giving us these coworkers, these connections, and these skills to be used for God's work? Maybe right now, maybe in a really concrete way right now, but maybe 20 years from now, God has something. Like, Dean, you're talking about how maybe I'm good at interviewing people. Mm-hmm. I love talking to people now. I used to not be good at it.
Right.
And it feels like a skill that God has developed in me, and that God might be thinking about, maybe I'll use that skill now. So in our work and in our coworkers and like this faith stream, the string that runs through our lives of faith doesn't always have to be in our faces evident, but it can be, but we should always be on the lookout for how God is going to use this moment. Yeah. God is going to use this skill. And don't write it off because, well, I'm not a pastor, so it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Or I can't even ask my coworker how their weekend was. How am I going to witness to them? Like, there are other ways to build those relationships and to work those network connections and to find the safe spaces to work with people.
Yeah, I think it's about little interactions. Like, you don't know how much little interactions can really help. It's like building bridges to a better connection. And that's what I would look at it as.
Well, I mean, and I think it's talk about Dean's path, like this idea that God put some of these things in place, like for me to be part of the Wabash Pastoral Leadership Program, where then I hear about IU Health Group making this choice so many years ago. Mm-hmm. Then I happen to be talking to a person who's on a board that oversees the people who make that decision. Like, how many things had to happen for me to ask someone that question? Maybe nothing comes of it, but here's this chance in the economies of the world to maybe make a difference. Yeah. And so to bring it up.
I totally agree with that. And like I said, and I'll repeat it, the moment that I took the job that Pastor Foster and Pastor Tyke wanted me to do, things started being different for me. I wouldn't have met Carol. I wouldn't have met you because I wouldn't have gotten into church working to begin with. Yeah. So I wouldn't, it's simply amazing how it just runs. And if you look back, what I have fun about is you look back at the path that God put you on and you didn't even realize it.
We've also talked about afterwards, like it still influences what you might do in the future. Right. Like, so there's things that making connections and things that you can line up that can work in different ways that you didn't even plan to.
Yeah. God does open these doors. And so don't give up if it doesn't feel like that door's open for you yet. Whatever the door is going to be that God's going to open, don't get discouraged. Just keep your eyes open.
And that is great advice.
Why don't we wrap up in prayer today? Mm-hmm. Gracious God, we thank you for the work that you give us, the work that you have given us, for the ways that is provided for us and for our families, and the way that has given us meaning in our lives. In our work, help us to make connections that sustain us, like friends to work side by side with, people to commiserate with, to complain to listen to their complaints while we are doing the hard work of work. They call it work, after all. But also open doors, that our coworkers might be more than coworkers. That not all of them, but the right ones, the people that you're leading us to, not based on our judgment of who's right and wrong, but who you're calling us to be in relationship with, to work with on projects at work, but also outside of work. Just open those doors for us and give us the skills necessary to walk through them. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
For Nick Robinson and Will Speaker, I'm Dean O'Neill, and you're on the Daily Path.